"Go die in some nursing home, you useless thing." Those were the words my daughter-in-law screamed at me. Just one day after the lottery ticket I bought won $92 million. My name is Dot Harlan. I'm 72 years old, and this is the story of how my own family threw me away like an old piece of furniture. If you believe that a person's dignity doesn't have a price tag, please share this story. I'd love to hear your thoughts, because no one should have to endure this kind of cruelty all by themselves. This house, with its 2 stories of red brick darkened by years of sun and rain, has always been my own little treasure box. It's more than just shelter. It's a witness, a keeper of every piece of my family's soul. Every single brick is steeped in the laughter of Walter, my late husband, and every step of the oak staircase still holds the memory of the pitter-patter of Tyler's feet, our only son. Walter built the bookshelf in the living room with his own 2 hands. He used to say that every book was a world, and he wanted me to have a whole universe to explore. After he passed, I kept up the habit of dusting each spine every morning, as if I were touching a part of his memory. My tragedy, or maybe I should say my fight to reclaim my dignity, didn't start with a bang, but with a weak knock on the door in the middle of a torrential downpour back in 2018. Autumn came early to Georgia that year, bringing with it a cold, nagging rain. It didn't pour so much as it wept, a persistent sorrow that couldn't be put into words. Heavy drops hit the window pane, leaving long, winding streaks, like tears rolling down an old woman's face. I was sitting in Walter's armchair, a cup of long, cold chamomile tea in my hand, trying to read a few lines of a novel under the dim yellow light. The wind whistled through the cracks in the old window frame, carrying a damp chill that made me pull my wool shawl tighter around my shoulders. And then, through the sad symphony of the rainy night, the knock came. It wasn't the firm rap of a neighbor, nor the loud bang of a delivery man. It was a hesitant, timid, almost desperate sound, as if the hand that made it had used its very last bit of strength. My heart skipped a beat. At 9 o'clock at night, in a storm like this, it could only mean trouble. I put my teacup down and walked to the front porch. The yellow light from inside the house spilled out, illuminating a scene I don't think I'll ever forget for as long as I live. Tyler, my son, stood there, soaked to the bone. His hair was plastered to his pale forehead. The International Paper Factory uniform he was always so proud to wear was now wrinkled and stained. He wouldn't look me in the eye. His gaze was fixed on the wet wood of the porch floor, a look full of shame and defeat. Huddled behind him was Kayla, my daughter-in-law. She was pregnant with my first grandchild, her belly swelling under a thin dress that was clinging to her from the rain. Kayla didn't seem as broken as Tyler. She held her head high, and though her eyes were tired, they still held a spark of defiance, as if the whole world owed her an apology. Rain streamed down their faces, and I couldn't tell what was rain and what might have been tears. Tyler's throat was tight. He stammered, "Mom, but I didn't need to hear another word. I'm a mother. A mother's heart doesn't need words to understand." I saw it all in my son's slumped shoulders and in the way my daughter-in-law's hand gripped his arm. Jobless, desperate, nowhere else to go. I could have asked 100 questions. How did it come to this? What did you do with your savings? Why didn't you call me sooner? But at that moment, those questions would have been like throwing stones at a drowning man. Instead, I took a step back, opening the door as wide as I could. I looked my son straight in the eye, then turned to my daughter-in-law and said the one sentence that would define the next 7 years of my life. "Come on in. There's always room for you here." I didn't ask any more questions. I just handed them warm, dry towels, made them hot milk, and gave them my and Walter's master bedroom on the ground floor, the one with the window that looked out onto my beloved rose garden. That night, I moved up to the guest room upstairs, listening to the rain, which no longer sounded mournful but had softened like a comforting lullaby. I thought this was just a temporary stop for them, a port in the storm before their ship could set sail again. I was so wrong. It wasn't a stop, it was a permanent harbor, and I was the one who was going to pay the docking fees. And so, the 7 years of bread and salt began. That was Walter's saying. He always said true love was when you could share a crust of bread and a grain of salt together through the hard times. But I never imagined I would be the only one providing both the bread and the salt for such a terribly long time. My life changed so slowly, so gradually, that at first, I barely noticed. My monthly pension check, the $1,840 I had planned to use for travel, to fix the porch roof, to buy brand new hardcover books, now had a different purpose. It became the lifeline for a family of 3, and then 4, after baby Lily was born. At the beginning of each month, I'd sit at the oak dining table where Walter used to read the paper every morning and perform a familiar ritual. I'd lay out the bills in front of me: the Georgia Power electric bill, the Macon Water Authority water bill, the homeowner's insurance notice, and then Lily's preschool tuition. The numbers danced before my eyes, like little leeches sucking my meager lifeblood dry. I signed each check, my handwriting growing shakier with age. The first check kept the lights on, so Kayla could watch her reality TV shows late into the night. The second check kept the water running, so Tyler could soak for hours in a hot bath, trying to wash away the feeling of failure. The third check protected the roof over their heads. And the last check, the biggest one, was so Lily could go to school, learn to draw, to dance, and have a childhood that her parents couldn't give her. After everything was paid, the money left in my account was just enough for the most basic groceries. I gave up the fragrant lattes from my favorite coffee shop, replacing them with cheap instant coffee. I no longer bought fresh salmon, settling for frozen chicken breasts. Weekend movie outings with my friend Marlene became a thing of the past. My life shrank to fit within the 4 walls of this house, and my joy was simply seeing my children and grandchildren fed. Tyler couldn't find a steady job. He did odd jobs here and there, a little construction work, some delivery driving, but nothing ever lasted more than a few months. The confidence he once had as the head of his family was worn away to nothing. He became quiet and withdrawn, spending most of his time playing video games on the computer. The entire financial and emotional burden fell on my shoulders, and Kayla, my daughter-in-law, seemed to think that was just the way things should be. She didn't work. She said she needed to stay home to take care of Lily, but most of the time I saw her scrolling on her phone or shopping online with my pension money. Kayla had a special talent. She could wrap her selfish demands in sweet, caring words, and the whole business with the bedroom was the clearest proof of that talent. One sweltering summer afternoon, about 2 years after they'd moved in, Kayla came into my room. I was sitting on the bed, folding one of Walter's old sweaters. Our master bedroom was spacious and airy, with 2 large windows overlooking the garden. The afternoon sun filtered through the leaves, casting dancing patterns of light on the wooden floor. This was my private space, the place where I felt Walter's presence most clearly. Kayla walked in, carrying a glass of iced tea. She smiled, a smile that I would later realize was calculated down to the millimeter. "Mom, are you tired?" she asked, placing the glass on the bedside table. "I've noticed you haven't been sleeping well. It's probably because this room is so close to the street, isn't it? All that noise." I was surprised. I'd lived here for almost 50 years and had never found it noisy. I shook my head. "No, dear, I'm used to it." Kayla sat on the edge of the bed, her voice as soft as a whisper. "Well, Tyler and I are worried about your health. Older folks need absolute quiet. How about you move into the attic for a little while? It's up high, so you won't hear the traffic. You'll sleep so much better. Besides, this room is too big for just one person. It must feel empty. We're down here, near the kitchen and the door, and it's not convenient if we need to run up to check on you." Every single word was coated in a sugary layer of fake concern, but underneath that coating, I saw the naked truth. She wanted this room. She wanted the space, the windows with the garden view, and most importantly, she wanted to push me out of the heart of my own home, turning me into a dependent, a renter in the house I owned. I glanced at Tyler. He was leaning against the doorframe, looking away, not daring to meet my eyes. His silence hurt me more than Kayla's words ever could. He was going along with it. My son, the child I had carried and raised, was agreeing to shove his own mother into a cramped attic. A fire of anger and hurt flared up in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, "This is my house. This was my room and your father's. You have no right." But then I saw little Lily playing in the hallway, her clear laughter echoing down the hall. if I made a scene, this house would stop being a home. It would become a battlefield, and the children would be the first casualties. I've lived most of my life already. What was the point of fighting over a room? I took a deep breath, swallowing my anger back down, along with the tears that were threatening to fall. I nodded slowly. Yes, you have a point. I'll move up there. Kayla let out a little squeal of delight and wrapped her arms around me. Oh, I knew you'd understand. You're the best mother-in-law ever. Her hug was cold and phony. The next day, I started packing. I packed 50 years of memories into cardboard boxes, my wedding photo with Walter, the letters he wrote me when he was in the service, the pocket watch my father left me. Every item was a broken piece of my life. Tyler came in to help, but he just worked in silence, not saying a word. I knew he was ashamed, but that shame wasn't strong enough to make him speak up for his own mother. The attic was barely 80 square feet, just big enough for a single bed, a small dresser, and an old desk. The ceiling sloped, forcing me to duck my head whenever I walked around. There was one tiny, round window that looked out at the brick wall of the neighbor's house. In the summer, it was hot as an oven. In the winter, the wind seeped through the cracks, and I'd have to pile on 3 blankets to stay warm. From that room, I could hear every sound of the life happening below. The TV blaring, Kayla laughing on the phone, Tyler playing his games, Lily and Noah, my second grandchild, playing and shouting. I heard everything, yet I was a part of it in a strange, detached way. I felt like an audience member watching a play about my own family from a seat in the very back row. I had accepted that fate. This is a sacrifice, I told myself. It's what mothers all over the world do. We swallow the bitter pills so that our children and grandchildren can walk on a smooth path. 7 years went by just like that. 7 years I lived on bread and salt, on love and forbearance. I thought my life would end in that attic, quietly and invisibly. But I had no idea that fate, or perhaps God himself, had another test in store for me, a test that would force me to find the voice I had lost so long ago. Time has a funny way of working. 7 years can feel like a century when you're counting every weary day, but looking back, it can also fly by in the blink of an eye, leaving behind deep scars on your soul that you don't even realize are there. After 7 years of living in the attic, I got used to making myself small. My world was no longer my fragrant rose garden or evening strolls in the park. It was that small, round window looking out at the neighbor's unfeeling brick wall. I got used to walking softly, speaking quietly, and existing like a shadow in my own house. But there was one thread that connected me to the vibrant world outside, a thin but incredibly strong thread, and her name was Lily. My granddaughter Lily just turned 10 this year. She is the ray of sunshine that cuts through the dark clouds of my life. She has Walter's eyes, a warm hazelnut brown, and a smile that could melt the coldest Georgia winter. Lily isn't like her parents. She has a pure soul and a kind heart. Every afternoon when she came home from school, the first thing she'd do was run up to the attic and chatter away, telling me all about her day. She'd show me a picture she drew of a blue cat or an A-plus essay she wrote about the most wonderful grandma in the world. Those moments were my life force, the reason I kept on enduring. Lily's 10th birthday was coming up, and she had a small dream, a dream the color of lavender. One day, while we were walking downtown, she stopped dead in her tracks in front of the Macon Wheels bicycle shop. Her eyes were glued to a bicycle in the display window. It was a beautiful bike. The frame was painted a shimmering lavender, with a cream-colored leather seat and handlebars. But the thing that truly captivated her was the pristine white wicker basket mounted on the front. "Grandma, look," Lily whispered, her small hands pressed against the cold glass. "Isn't it beautiful? If I had that bike, I would ride it out to the meadows and pick a whole basket of wildflowers to bring back for you." Her words made my heart melt. I looked at the price tag hanging from the handlebars. $220. Not a huge sum for many people, but for me at that time, it was a small fortune. It was nearly all the pension money I had left after paying all the monthly bills. But the image of Lily, riding down a country lane with her hair flying in the wind and a basket full of wildflowers, was etched into my mind. I knew I had to make it happen for her. A 10-year-old's dream is a sacred thing and can't be put on hold. And so, I began my secret savings plan. I became a magician with my few dollars. My morning coffee with Marlene at the Roasted Bean had to go. I lied and said I wasn't feeling well. At the grocery store, I stopped buying the Earl Grey tea bags I loved and switched to a cheap, no-name brand. The hardest part was my medicine. I have high blood pressure, and my doctor prescribed a pill I had to take every day. To save money, I did something I knew was foolish, even dangerous. I took a razor blade and carefully split each tiny pill in half, one half for today, one for tomorrow. Every time I did it, my heart pounded with fear, but then the image of Lily's smile would appear in my mind, and it would give me the courage to continue. After nearly a month of scrimping and saving, of pinching every penny, I finally had the $220. I felt like a soldier who had just won a great battle. I waited until Kayla and Tyler took the kids to a movie, then I snuck out of the house and walked to Macon Wheels. The owner, a kind man named Mel, smiled when he saw me. "Hello, Mrs. Dot," he said. "Haven't seen you in a while. What can I get for you?" I'd like to buy the purple bicycle in the window," I said, my voice trembling a little with excitement. Mr. Mel looked at me, then at the bike. His eyes showed a flicker of surprise that quickly warmed. "That's a wonderful choice. For your granddaughter, I bet? She's going to love it." I paid in cash, the dollar bills old and wrinkled from being hidden away so carefully. Mr. Mel helped me wrap the bike in silver gift paper printed with little stars. I couldn't just walk the bike home in plain sight, so I asked him to hold it for me. I told him I'd be back to pick it up the night before Lily's birthday. That night, I was too excited to sleep. I imagined how Lily would scream with joy in the morning, how she'd throw her arms around me and tell me I was the best grandma in the world. I'd take the bike out to the yard and teach her how to keep her balance. It would be a beautiful memory, a single bright spot in my dim life. The night before her birthday, I waited until the whole house was asleep. I tiptoed down the stairs, slipped out of the house, and walked to the bike shop. Mr. Mel was waiting for me. He helped me push the bike home, and together we snuck it into the garage. I hid it behind an old tarp, my heart pounding like a drum. I felt like a secret agent on a top-secret mission. The next morning, I woke up very early, my heart filled with joy. I planned to bring the bike inside while everyone was eating breakfast, but Kayla ruined everything. I don't know how she found out. Maybe she heard a strange noise in the garage the night before, or maybe the sixth sense of a control freak tipped her off. As I was about to go downstairs, Kayla was standing there, blocking the door to my attic room. She wasn't angry. No, Kayla never showed her anger openly. She used a much more terrifying weapon, that sickeningly sweet, fake kindness. "Mom," she began, her voice as smooth as velvet. "I just saw something very pretty in the garage, a purple bicycle." I froze. My plan was exposed. Kayla walked closer, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're so kind, always thinking of the children. But Mom," her voice grew more serious, though still gentle, "Tyler and I are trying to teach Lily the value of money. We want her to understand that she can't just get everything she wants. A gift this expensive will spoil her. She'll start to think everything in life comes too easily." Every word she spoke was like a needle pricking my skin. She was using high-minded moral lessons to mask her own selfishness and control. She didn't want me to have a special place in Lily's heart. She wanted to be the sole giver of joy, the center of her daughter's world. "We told Lily she wouldn't be getting a big present this year," Kayla continued. "Just a small party with a cake. She was fine with that. If you give her the bike now, all our hard work teaching her would go right down the drain. Do you understand?" I understood. I understood all too well. I looked into Kayla's eyes. There wasn't a flicker of movement, not a shred of compassion. In her eyes, I was just a meddling old woman, ruining her parenting plans. A bitter taste filled my mouth. All my joy, all my anticipation, shattered into a million pieces. I had skipped meals, cut back on medicine, gambled with my own health. And for what? To be lectured like a child. But what could I do? Argue with her? 'Cause a huge fight on Lily's birthday? I couldn't do that to my granddaughter. Once again, I chose silence. I gave a nod that felt like it had 1,000-pound weight attached to it. I understand, I said, my voice cracking. Later that day, I quietly walked the bicycle back to Mr. Mel's shop. He looked at me with such pity in his eyes and didn't ask a single question. He gave me a full refund. I held the dollar bills in my hand, but this time, they didn't bring any sense of victory. They just felt cold and meaningless, like scraps of paper. Lily's birthday party went on. There was cake, candles, and a chorus of "Happy Birthday." She smiled, but I could see a shadow of disappointment in her eyes. She knew. Children are more perceptive than we think. She knew something had been taken from her. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. The feelings of helplessness, humiliation, and anger churned inside me. For 7 years, I had sacrificed everything: my money, my living space, my health, and my pride. And now I couldn't even give one small moment of joy to the granddaughter I adored. I had given everything and gotten nothing but contempt and control in return. An idea sparked in my mind. A crazy idea. An act of rebellion. I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't let myself waste away in this attic. I needed a miracle. Or if not a miracle, I needed a chance. I put on my coat and tiptoed downstairs. I walked through the quiet dark of Macon, heading for Benny's Corner Mart on Mulberry, the only place with its lights still on. Under the cold, fluorescent glare, I stood in front of the Powerball display. I only had a few dollars left in my pocket. "1 ticket, please," I said to the sleepy young clerk. I took a slip of paper and a little pencil. I had to pick 6 numbers. I didn't think for long. The numbers just appeared in my head, as if they were meant to be. 08, Walter's birthday. 15, my birthday. 22, Tyler's birthday. 29, Lily's birthday. 37, Noah's birthday. And finally, 42, the year we got married. They were the numbers of my life, of my love, my sacrifices, and my pain. I paid my $2 and took the flimsy ticket. It felt like a promise, a tiny flicker of hope. When I got back to the attic, I didn't put the ticket in my wallet. I knew Kayla might find it there. I needed somewhere safe, somewhere sacred. I took out my old leather-bound Bible, the one Walter had given me for our 50th wedding anniversary. The cover was worn, and the pages were yellowed, but it was my most precious possession. I turned to Psalm 23, my favorite passage. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." I felt as if Walter was right there beside me, comforting me. I carefully tucked the lottery ticket and the purchase receipt between the pages, and then I did something that would end up saving my life. I opened the small wooden box on my desk where I kept Walter's mementos. Inside was his old Parker fountain pen, the one he had used for 40 years to write love letters, to sign important papers, to jot down his thoughts. I took out the pen. There was still ink inside, a deep, dark blue, like the ocean. I opened the receipt, and in the blank space at the bottom, I signed my name, Dorothy Harlan. My handwriting wasn't as steady as it used to be. It trembled with age and the rush of emotions I was feeling. But it was my signature, my mark. I closed the Bible and placed it on my nightstand. I rested my hand on the leather cover, feeling its solidness. I didn't pray to win. I was too tired of begging. That night, I whispered just one thing, not a plea, but a statement. "Lord, I'm not asking for riches, I'm just asking for justice." And then, for the first time in a long, long time, I fell into a deep and peaceful sleep, completely unaware that in just a few hours, the biggest storm of my life was about to hit. The dawn in Macon usually comes gently, starting with a streak of pinkish-orange on the horizon, then slowly bathing the sky in a soft light, waking the sparrows in the magnolia trees. But the next morning, that fateful morning, I wasn't woken by sunlight or birdsong. I was jolted out of my deep sleep by a scream. It wasn't a scream of fear or pain. It was a piercing, hysterical shriek, a sound of pure, unadulterated ecstasy, the kind of sound that could shatter walls. The scream came from the kitchen downstairs, and I recognized Kayla's voice immediately. "Tyler, oh my God, Tyler, get up, we won! Katervink dues $1 million! Oh my God, we won!" I shot up in bed, my heart starting to pound erratically in my chest. $92 million. The numbers, my family's numbers. It couldn't be, it had to be a mistake. Miracles don't happen that easily, especially not to someone like me. Trembling, I grabbed my robe and stepped out of my room. Standing at the top of the stairs, I could see down into the kitchen. The scene before me was like a silent movie come to life. Kayla, in her pink silk pajamas, was jumping up and down, holding the little slip of a lottery ticket high in the air like it was a holy relic. Tyler burst out of their bedroom, his hair a mess, his face still puffy with sleep. At first, he looked skeptical, but when Kayla shoved the ticket in his face and pointed to the numbers on the laptop screen, which was already open to the Georgia Lottery website, his expression transformed. Disbelief melted away, replaced by stunned shock, which then exploded into a grin that stretched from ear to ear. They grabbed each other, screaming and dancing around my oak dining table. They kissed each other, then they kissed the ticket. They laughed wildly, an out-of-control, hysterical laughter of people who had just been set free from the crushing weight of their reality. I stood on the top step, my hands gripping the worn wooden banister. My whole body was shaking. The shock wasn't from joy. It was from an icy chill that was slowly spreading through my veins. That was my ticket. Those were my numbers. That was my hope. I had bought it with my last $2, born from the bitterness of that purple bicycle, paid for with 7 long years of swallowing my pride. But as I looked down at the jubilant scene in my kitchen, a harsh reality hit me. In their frantic celebration, not once did they look up the stairs. Not one of them thought to ask, "Where did this ticket come from?" Not one of them remembered the mother, the grandmother, who bought it. In their eyes, this miracle had just fallen from the heavens, and it was meant only for them. I slowly started down the stairs, each step feeling as heavy as lead. As I reached the bottom step, their laughter stopped abruptly. They turned and looked at me. For a split second, I had hope. I hoped to see a flash of confusion in their eyes, a moment of realization, an explanation. But there was nothing. Kayla looked at me, the smile fading from her lips, replaced by a sharp, calculating glint in her eyes. She clutched the ticket tighter in her hand, as if she was afraid I was going to snatch it away. Tyler wouldn't meet my gaze. He turned away, pretending to pour himself a glass of water, but I could see his hand was shaking. The silence that fell over the room was heavier and more terrifying than all the shouting that had come before. That silence was the answer. They knew, deep down in their hearts, they knew whose ticket it was. But they had chosen to ignore the truth. They had chosen greed. I didn't say a word. What could I say? Scream that they were thieves? For what? To shatter this family into even smaller pieces? I just quietly went into the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea, just like every other morning, but my hands were numb. I felt invisible, like a ghost walking through my own home, watching the people I loved most in the world celebrate my sacrifice. The change was almost immediate. All day, Kayla's phone rang off the hook. She paced back and forth in the living room, talking to people I guessed were lawyers and financial advisors. Her voice was no longer sickly sweet. It had become powerful and sharp. She talked about investment portfolios, trust funds, and tax optimization. Tyler sat glued to his computer screen, not playing games, but looking at flashy sports cars and beachfront mansions. They were completely absorbed in their new world, a world that had no room for me. And then, my worst nightmare came true. That afternoon, while I was up in the attic trying to read a few pages to calm my nerves, I heard loud noises from the yard. I looked through my little round window and saw a sight that made my blood run cold. Kayla was dragging the cardboard boxes of my belongings out of the storage shed and throwing them onto the front lawn. She didn't just place them down gently, she threw them with a venomous contempt, as if she was getting rid of filthy, disgusting garbage. I flew down the stairs, my heart feeling like it was about to burst out of my chest. "Kayla, what are you doing?" She spun around, her face flushed, not from exertion, but from a cruel rage I had never seen before. The sweet mask had fallen away completely, revealing a stranger, a terrifying monster. "I'm cleaning house," she sneered. "This place needs an update. We can't live with all this old, useless junk anymore." "But those are my things," I cried out, my voice breaking. "That's everything I have." One box hit the ground so hard it burst open. Inside were my mother's keepsakes. The wedding dress she had sewn for me with her own hands was now stained with mud. The little Jiangxi porcelain vase that had a tiny crack I'd always treasured was now shattered into 100 pieces. And then, she pulled out the wedding photograph of me and Walter, the picture of us beaming on the happiest day of our lives. She looked at the photo, a smirk playing on her lips. "Old things belong in the past," she said, and then she threw the frame right onto the concrete driveway. The sound of shattering glass was sharp and piercing, as if something had just broken inside my own chest. I stood there, stunned, unable to believe what I was seeing. This was my daughter-in-law? The woman my son loved? The mother of my grandchildren? "Kayla, why?" I could only whisper, as the tears began to stream down my face. She stepped right up to me, her eyes narrowed. I could feel her breath on my face, cold and reeking of victory. "Why?" she repeated. "You really want to know why? Because you're all used up, you old woman. We don't need your pathetic little pension checks anymore. We're millionaires. You're just a burden, a reminder of a poor past we want to bury. You get it now?" And then she said the cruelest words of all, words that have been permanently seared into my heart. "Now get the hell out of my sight. Take your junk and go die in some miserable nursing home, you useless old woman. This isn't your house anymore. You hear me?" She screamed the last part, spit flying from her mouth. Tyler stood in the doorway and watched it all. He was pale, his lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just turned his face away. His cowardice, in that moment, was even crueler than Kayla's wickedness. He had chosen a side. He had chosen money over his own mother. I stopped crying. A strange numbness washed over me. I didn't feel pain anymore, just a vast, empty void. I slowly walked over to the pile of my discarded life. I knelt and picked up the shattered picture frame. The photo of me and Walter was torn by a long scratch, but his smile was as warm as ever. I carefully brushed away the shards of glass, wiped off the dirt, and slipped the photo into my coat pocket. I stood up and looked at Kayla one last time. I said nothing. There was nothing left to say. I turned, walked back into the house, and went straight up to the attic. I didn't take any clothes. I didn't take any books. I only took 2 things. The family Bible, where the receipt with my signature, my only proof of the truth, was kept safe, and my small handbag, which held my wallet, a few of my blood pressure pills, and Walter's old box of heart medication. I walked downstairs, passing Tyler and Kayla without a glance. I opened the front door and stepped outside. I didn't look back. I pulled out my phone and called a taxi. While I waited, I stood on the curb, looking at the red brick house where I had spent almost my entire life. It was still there, still standing strong, but it wasn't my home anymore. It had become a strange place, a monument to greed and betrayal. The yellow taxi arrived. The driver helped me with the door. I got into the back seat and just gave a random address, a cheap motel on the other side of town. As the car pulled away, I looked through the rear window. I saw Kayla pointing at my pile of things, ordering a gardener she must have just hired to toss it all into a garbage truck. And I did something. I took out my phone, and I took a picture of that moment. The moment my entire life was being treated like trash. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was instinct. The taxi drove me aimlessly through the streets of Macon. I had no destination, nowhere to go. Every familiar street, every corner, felt like salt in my wounds. The city I had lived in for nearly 50 years suddenly felt cold and alien. Finally, I told the driver to stop in a part of downtown I'd never been to before. It was filled with Asian restaurants and shops, neon lights flashing with characters I didn't recognize. I paid the fare, got out, and felt like a complete stranger. I found a faux restaurant called Faux 86. Above the restaurant was a faded sign that said, "Room for rent." I went inside. The air was thick with the scent of spices, star anise, cinnamon, and fish sauce all mingling into an atmosphere that was both warm and foreign. A young woman was busy behind the counter. I walked up and shyly asked her about the room. She looked me over, her eyes full of curiosity, but she didn't ask any questions. She got a set of keys and led me up a narrow, steep staircase at the back of the restaurant. The room she showed me was on the 2nd floor, right above the restaurant's kitchen. It was tiny, maybe 120 square feet, just big enough to breathe. The smell of fish sauce and star anise drifted up from the kitchen, seeping through every crack, clinging to the curtains and the bedsheets. The room was furnished so sparsely it was pitiful. A single bed with a sagging mattress, a rickety old desk with one leg propped up on a stack of books, and a wobbly wardrobe whose door wouldn't close properly. The only light came from a small, grimy window that was stuck shut and couldn't be opened. Looking through it, all I could see was a stained brick wall and a tangled mess of electrical wires that looked like a spider's web. The rent was $420 a month, payable in advance. I didn't hesitate. I pulled out almost all the cash I had left in my wallet and put it in the girl's hand. She seemed surprised by how quickly I agreed, but she nodded and gave me the key. When she left, closing the door behind her, I was completely alone in this strange new space. Silence fell. It was a different kind of silence than the quiet of my attic. Here, the silence wasn't empty. It was thick and heavy, pressing down on my chest. I stood in the middle of the room, and a wave of despair and loneliness crashed over me. The tears I had been holding back all day finally came. I didn't wail or sob. I just sank to the cold floor, leaned my back against the single bed, and let the hot tears roll silently down my cheeks. I cried for my lost home, for my betrayed love, and for my own naivety in believing that a mother's love could ever win against greed. I don't know how long I sat there. It wasn't until the last bit of twilight disappeared behind the brick wall and the room was plunged into darkness that I stopped crying. The pain was still there, a dull ache like a fresh burn, but the initial numbness was gone. In its place, another feeling began to form, a feeling I hadn't allowed myself to have in 7 long years: rage. It wasn't a blind, hot anger. It was a cold and clear-headed fury. They had taken everything from me: my home, my money, my memories, and my love. But there was one thing they couldn't take: my dignity. And the truth. I stood up, wiping away the last of my tears. Enough was enough. I would not be a passive victim any longer. This fight couldn't be won with tears and sorrow. It had to be fought with intelligence and careful preparation. The first thing I did was turn on the single desk lamp. The weak yellow light illuminated my haggard face in the small mirror on the wall. I looked straight into my own swollen eyes and said aloud, "Dorothy Harlan, you have to be strong." Then, I put my handbag on the desk. I carefully took out the family Bible. I stroked the worn leather cover, feeling the familiar comfort it brought me. This wasn't just a book. This was my most crucial piece of evidence. The receipt with my blue ink signature was still safe inside, but I knew this shabby little room was no place to keep it. Kayla, in her money-crazed state, would stop at nothing. She could hire someone to find me, to search my belongings. I couldn't take that risk. The next morning, I was up before the sun. I was at the First Southern Bank the moment they opened their doors. It was the same bank Walter and I had used for 40 years. I asked to rent a safe deposit box. The teller, looking at this simply dressed old woman with tired eyes, seemed a bit surprised, but processed the paperwork for me. I was led into a cold room, protected by a thick steel door. When I was alone, I opened the small metal box. I took a deep breath and placed my Bible inside. Before I closed it, I set the combination. I didn't choose a birthday or any other obvious number. I chose 0723, July 23rd, the date of my wedding anniversary with Walter, a number whose true meaning only he and I knew. When the heavy steel door clicked shut, I felt a strange sense of relief. My most important piece of evidence was now secure. Now, I could begin the next step of my plan. Leaving the bank, I went to a small coffee shop and ordered a hot tea. I needed an ally, someone I could trust completely, and only one name came to mind: Marlene Gibbs. Marlene had been my neighbor for 40 years. She was a widow, like me, a strong, straightforward woman with a heart of gold. We had shared countless morning coffees, the grief of losing our husbands, and the joy of watching our grandchildren grow. Marlene knew my situation. She had often expressed her disapproval of how Kayla treated me, but out of respect for me, she had never interfered. Now, I needed her help. I dialed Marlene's number. It barely rang once before she picked up, as if she had been waiting for my call. Dot. Oh, thank God, are you all right? I saw that horrible scene on your lawn yesterday. I must have called you a dozen times, but it wouldn't go through. Her voice was filled with worry. I'm fine, Marlene. I'm somewhere safe, I reassured her. But I need you to do something for me. Something very important. Anything, Dot. You name it. I need you to be my eyes and ears, I said, my voice turning serious. Keep an eye on the house for me. Write down everything you see, anything out of the ordinary. Strange cars, unfamiliar people visiting, especially any big-ticket items they bring home. And Marlene, I hesitated for a moment. I know this is a lot to ask, but could you set up a small wireless security camera pointed at my front door? I'll send you the money for it. Marlene didn't hesitate for a second. Don't be silly about money, Dot. I'll do it right now. I have an old one my son left behind. I'll put it in my living room window. It has a perfect view of your house. They'll never know. You just rest easy. I'll be your eyes. A tear of gratitude rolled down my cheek. Thank you, Marlene. I owe you so much. We're friends, she said firmly. Now you take care of yourself. And remember, you are not alone in this. After I hung up, I felt a new surge of strength. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. I had Walter's memory to guide me, my faith as my shield, and a loyal friend as my ally. I finished my cold tea. It tasted bitter, but it made me feel more awake than I had in years. I had a place to stay, my evidence was protected, and I had surveillance on the enemy. I knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. Whatever Kayla and Tyler were planning, I would be ready for them. The next few days in that little room above the faux restaurant passed in a strange sort of quiet. It was the quiet before a storm. During the day, I kept myself busy. I'd walk to the public library and sit for hours, not really reading, just being around strangers, feeling like a part of the world. I ate simple meals, usually a sandwich or a cup of soup from the grocery store. At night, when the noise from the restaurant died down, I'd lie on that rickety bed, staring at the stained ceiling, and I'd think. I knew it was only a matter of time before Kayla and Tyler made their move. With $92 million on the line, they wouldn't sit still for long. I was right. The call came on the third day, on a gray afternoon when a light drizzle was blanketing Macon. I was trying to wipe down the stuck window when my cheap little phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. My heart skipped a beat. I took a deep, calming breath before I answered. Hello, Dorothy Harlan speaking. Good afternoon, Mrs. Harlan, a calm, professional man's voice said on the other end. My name is Russell Tate. I'm an attorney with the Georgia Lottery Corporation's legal department. I'm calling to verify some information regarding the recent Powerball jackpot claim. My whole body tensed up. Yes, I'm listening, Mr. Tate. Ma'am, we have received the winning ticket. Upon inspection, we have confirmed that the signature, Dorothy Harlan, on the back of the ticket is valid and matches the identification we have for you on file. A wave of relief washed over me. My signature. They had confirmed it. I had won. But that joy was short-lived. Mr. Tate's voice became more cautious. However, there is a small issue, ma'am. The person who submitted the ticket and filed the claim was not you. It was a woman named Kayla Harlan, who identified herself as your daughter-in-law. That's right, I said, my throat suddenly feeling dry. My daughter-in-law. Yes. And she submitted a legal document along with the ticket, a full power of attorney. My blood ran cold. Power of attorney. I had never signed any such paper in my entire life. Mr. Tate continued, his voice now carrying a note of professional gravity. According to this document, you have granted full and complete authority to Miss Kayla Harlan to act on your behalf in all financial and legal matters, including the claiming of this lottery prize. The document is dated 6 months ago. We're calling you today as a final verification step in our due diligence process. Mrs. Dorothy Harlan, did you in fact sign this power of attorney, granting your daughter-in-law these rights? There was a silence that stretched for a few seconds. I could hear my own heart hammering in my chest. Kayla's cunning went far beyond anything I had imagined. She didn't just steal the ticket. She had woven a web of lies to try and legitimize her theft. No, I said, and my voice was firm and clear, without a hint of hesitation. I have never signed any power of attorney for Kayla Harlan or for anyone else. On the other end of the line, I heard Mr. Tate let out a soft sigh. I suspected as much, ma'am. There were a few irregularities. The signature on the power of attorney, while a decent imitation, shows significant differences from the signature on the ticket and your file. And more importantly, he paused. It was signed with a completely different pen. A different pen? I repeated. Yes, your signature on the ticket was made with a fountain pen, liquid ink, a very distinct dark blue. The signature on the power of attorney was made with a common, cheap ballpoint pen with black ink. The difference in pressure and ink flow is quite evident under magnification. Ma'am, could you tell us what kind of pen you typically use to sign important documents? I closed my eyes, and a clear image of Walter's Parker fountain pen appeared in my mind. It was my late husband's Parker fountain pen, I said, my voice thick with emotion. The ink is always dark blue. I used it to sign the lottery ticket. And could you provide proof of that, ma'am? A signature sample or the pen itself would be very strong evidence. The pen. I don't have it anymore, I said, a pang of loss hitting me as I remembered my things being thrown away. But I have other proof. The receipt for the lottery ticket. I signed my name on that too, with the very same pen. And it's in a very safe place. That's excellent, ma'am. We will need that, Mr. Tate said. For now, we are placing a temporary freeze on the prize payout pending a full investigation. It appears there are clear signs of document forgery here. Do you wish to file a formal complaint? Yes, I answered without hesitation. I want to file a complaint. I want the truth to come out. Very good. I will email you the necessary paperwork. Do you have legal representation? Not yet, but I will get someone. I understand. Be careful, Mrs. Harlan. Cases involving this much money can get very complicated. The call ended, but my hand was still clenched around the phone. I was relieved but also worried. Relieved that the Lottery Corporation had detected the fraud, but worried because I knew that once Kayla's plan was blocked, she would become even more dangerous and unpredictable. Just then, my phone buzzed with a new text message. It was from Marlene. She hadn't sent words, but a short, silent video clip. I pressed play. The video was filmed from her living room window, a clear shot of the front yard of my house, their house, now. The video showed a delivery truck from a luxury car dealership slowly unloading a pearly white Bentley Continental onto the street. The car was shiny and expensive, looking completely out of place on our modest street. Kayla came out the front door, wearing stylish sunglasses, her arms crossed, smiling a smug, satisfied smile. Tyler followed her, looking a little awkward but unable to hide his pride. They walked around the car, stroking its paint like it was a priceless treasure. Marlene sent another text. This arrived this morning. Temporary plates. Heard it costs over $300,000. My heart tightened. They hadn't even gotten the money yet, but they had already started spending it. Their greed knew no bounds, and neither did their stupidity. They were creating evidence against themselves. I saved the video carefully. I knew what I had to do next. I couldn't fight this alone. I needed a lawyer, a good and trustworthy one. I remembered a name Walter had once mentioned, a lawyer in Macon who specialized in complex civil litigation. His name was Samuel Jones. I found the number for his law office and made an appointment for the next day. I barely slept that night. My mind was racing with plans, possibilities, and fears. I knew Mr. Tate's call was the starting gun, officially beginning a war I could not afford to lose. Because if I lost, I would lose everything, not just the money, but my honor and the truth of my 7 years of sacrifice. This war, I had to win. For Walter, for Lily, and for myself. Samuel Jones's law office wasn't in a shiny glass skyscraper. It was on the second floor of an old brick building in downtown Macon, the kind with creaky wooden stairs and tall windows that looked out on ancient oak trees. The space inside spoke more of intellect and experience than of flashy wealth. The walls were lined with dark oak bookshelves, crammed with thick law books and old, string-tied case files. The air smelled of old paper, the leather of the armchairs, and the faint, pleasant scent of pipe tobacco, though I never saw him smoke. Samuel Jones sat behind a large desk that was cluttered but not messy. He had a full head of neatly combed white hair and a face lined with the wisdom of his years, but his eyes, behind a pair of tortoiseshell glasses, were sharp and incredibly alert. When I walked in, he stood up and came around the desk to shake my hand, a gesture of respect I wasn't used to receiving. "Mrs. Harlan," he said, his voice deep and warm. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." I sat in the leather armchair across from him, feeling a strange tension. This was the first time in my life I'd ever had to see a lawyer. I placed my handbag, which contained what little evidence I had, on the floor beside me. "My husband, Walter," I began, my voice trembling slightly. "He used to say that if anyone in Macon needed a lawyer who didn't just know the law, but understood what was right, that person was you." A faint, brief smile touched Mr. Jones's lips. "Walter Harlan was a good man. I was sorry to hear of his passing. Now, ma'am, how can I help you today?" And so, I told him. I told him the whole story, from that rainy night 7 years ago, to the attic, the purple bicycle, the lottery ticket, and finally, the cruel betrayal and the phone call from Mr. Tate. I tried to tell it as clearly and objectively as I could, without letting my emotions take over, even though every memory I revisited was a stab of pain in my chest. For nearly an hour, Mr. Jones just sat there, his hands clasped on his desk, listening intently. He never interrupted me once. His eyes never left my face, and he would nod slightly from time to time, showing me he was completely focused and understood. His silence wasn't indifference. It was a deep respect that gave me the space and courage to say everything. When I finished, I took a deep breath, feeling as if I had just unburdened myself of a weight I had been carrying for years. "That's the whole story, Mr. Jones," I concluded. He remained quiet for a few moments, his gaze distant as he looked out the window, as if he were assembling all the pieces of the puzzle. Finally, he looked directly at me. "Mrs. Harlan," he said slowly, "first I must say that I have the utmost admiration for your resilience and your clarity of mind. You have been through an unimaginable ordeal." Then, his tone became professional and sharp. "Now, let's talk about the case. Based on what you've told me, I don't just see a civil lawsuit over a disputed asset. I see a clear-cut criminal case. Your daughter-in-law, Miss Kayla Harlan, has committed at least 2 felonies under Georgia state law." He held up one finger. "First, forgery in the first degree. She knowingly created a fraudulent legal document with the intent to defraud you of your property. That is a very serious crime." He held up a second finger. "Second, theft by taking. The lottery ticket, once you signed it, became your legal property. Her taking of that ticket without your permission, with the intent to permanently deprive you of it, constitutes theft. The amount of $92 million would make this theft of the most serious degree." So what should we do?" I asked. "Our strategy will proceed on 2 parallel tracks," he explained, pulling out a legal pad and starting to sketch out a plan. "On the criminal side, I will immediately contact the district attorney's office and Mr. Tate at the Lottery Corporation. We will provide them with all our evidence, including your testimony, and demand they open a formal criminal investigation into Miss Kayla Harlan. This will put immense pressure on their side." He paused, looking at me to make sure I was following. "On the civil side, we will file a lawsuit in the Bibb County Superior Court. The lawsuit will ask the court for a declaratory judgment, officially recognizing you as the sole, rightful owner of the prize. At the same time, we will request a temporary restraining order preventing the Lottery Corporation from awarding the prize to anyone until the case is resolved. This will lock up the money and stop your daughter-in-law and son from spending any more of it." I nodded, feeling a strong sense of confidence in his plan. "I have a few things that might help," I said. I opened my handbag. First, I showed him the picture I had taken on my phone, the one of my belongings and memories thrown on the lawn like trash. Mr. Jones looked at the photo, his expression growing grim. "This shows malicious intent and cruel treatment." "Very good. It will have a powerful emotional impact on a jury." Next, I played the video Marlene had sent me. The scene of the white Bentley being delivered, and Kayla's smug smile filled the screen. "Good heavens," Mr. Jones breathed. "They don't even have the money in hand. This is gold, Mrs. Harlan. It shows clear intent to possess and a foolish level of recklessness. It proves they were acting as if the money were already theirs, which reinforces the argument that the power of attorney was forged for that very purpose. He looked at me, a determined glint in his eye. Mrs. Harlan, we have a very strong case, very, very strong. The proof of purchase is your receipt with your authentic signature. The signature on the ticket is authentic. The power of attorney is a clear forgery, with evidence in the pen, the ink, and likely the fingerprints. Their extravagant spending is a fatal mistake. And your testimony, along with your neighbor as a witness, will paint a complete picture of abuse and greed. So, what are my chances? I asked, though I already felt I knew the answer. Mr. Jones leaned back in his chair, took off his glasses, and cleaned them slowly. Ma'am, in the legal profession, nothing is ever 100% certain. But I can tell you this. If I were your daughter-in-law's attorney, I would be advising her to start exploring plea bargain options. Because if this case goes before a jury, her chances of winning are next to zero. A feeling of relief, the likes of which I hadn't felt in years, spread through my entire body. For the first time, I no longer felt like a lone victim. I had the law on my side, and I had a brilliant lawyer ready to fight for what was right. Then we'll sue, I said, my voice firm. When I left his office, the drizzle outside had stopped. I no longer felt the gloom. Instead, the air felt clean and fresh. I knew the road ahead was still long, but now I could see a light at the end of the tunnel. It was the light of justice. I thought I would have more time to mentally prepare for what was to come. I was wrong. Kayla, upon realizing her plan had been stopped in its tracks, didn't waste a second. She didn't choose to fight through lawyers. She chose a direct confrontation, an approach that was both desperate and revealing of her aggressive nature. Late one afternoon, just as I returned to my room after a long day at the library, there was a knock on my door. It wasn't the gentle tap of my landlady. This was a loud, insistent, and impatient banging. My gut told me something was wrong. I looked through the peephole. My heart stopped. It was them. Tyler and Kayla. They stood in the narrow hallway, looking completely out of place. Tyler was wearing a new shirt, but it was wrinkled and disheveled. His face was gaunt, his eyes red and sunken. Kayla was the opposite. Her makeup was perfect, and she was wearing a designer dress she had undoubtedly just bought, but her polished exterior couldn't hide the raw tension on her face. I stood frozen behind the door, my mind racing. Should I open it? Mr. Jones had warned me not to have any direct contact with them, but then I knew I couldn't hide forever. This confrontation had to happen sooner or later. I took a deep breath, gathered all my courage, and turned the doorknob. The moment the door opened, Kayla started to barge in, but she stopped herself. She suddenly remembered her role. Her expression changed with astonishing speed. The impatience vanished, replaced by a look of pain and remorse. Her eyes welled up with tears. "Mom," she choked out, her voice trembling as if she were about to cry. "Oh my God, Mom, we finally found you. You're living in a place like this?" She glanced around my shabby room, a look of pity and disgust skillfully masked. Tyler stood awkwardly behind his wife. "Mom, we're sorry. We were wrong. Please come home with us." I stood my ground, not inviting them in, not saying a word. I just watched. I had lived with Kayla's phoniness for too long to be fooled again. This act was just too clumsy. Seeing my lack of reaction, Kayla took a step forward, trying to take my hand. "Mom, we are truly sorry. That day, we were just so excited. We lost control. We never meant to hurt you. You're our mother. Our family isn't complete without you." "That's right, Mom," Tyler chimed in, his voice weak. "Lily and Noah ask about you every day. We miss you." Those words, if they had been spoken a year ago, might have softened my heart. But now, they just made me feel sick to my stomach. They weren't here to apologize. They were here for something else. And Kayla didn't make me wait long to find out what it was. She pulled a neatly clipped stack of papers from her designer handbag. "Mom," she said, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness. "Our lawyer said there's just a little paperwork issue. It's just a formality." Since you were the one who bought the ticket, they need your signature to confirm it's a family asset to make the process smoother. You just have to sign right here, and then everything will be fine. We'll be a happy family again. We'll buy a huge house with a big garden for you to plant your flowers." She held the papers out to me. I glanced at them. The title at the top was clear: Property Transfer Agreement. They didn't just want me to confirm something. They wanted me to sign a document that would legally surrender all of my ownership rights. That's when I knew it was time to end this play. I looked Kayla straight in the eye, and for the first time in 7 years, I said, "No." My no was quiet, almost a whisper, but it carried an immense weight. It made the smile on Kayla's face freeze solid. "Mom, what are you saying?" she asked again, still trying to keep her voice sweet. "It's just a signature." I said no, I repeated, and this time my voice was clearer, stronger. "I'm not signing anything." Kayla's patience finally snapped. The mask began to crack. "Why not? What in the world are you thinking? This is the family's money." "No, Kayla," I replied calmly. "It's my money, and you tried to steal it." The change in Kayla's face was instantaneous. The pained expression vanished, replaced by a raw, naked rage. Her eyes narrowed into slits. "You senile old woman. What did you say? We stole it? You're the one who left. You're the one who abandoned your family." I didn't argue with her. Instead, I turned back into the room, walked to the rickety desk. I took out 2 documents that Mr. Jones had copied and sent to me. One was a copy of the forged power of attorney that Kayla had submitted. The other was a photocopy of the lottery ticket receipt I had signed, retrieved from my safe deposit box. I placed the 2 papers side by side on the desk. "Let's talk about signatures." Kayla and Tyler stepped into the room, their curiosity overriding their anger. I pointed to the receipt. "This is my signature, signed with my husband's Parker fountain pen, dark blue ink. The handwriting is a little shaky. It's the tremor of a 72-year-old woman." Then I pointed to the forged power of attorney. "And this is what you created. A signature made with a black Bic ballpoint pen. The lines are stiff and soulless. You might be able to fool some people, Kayla, but you can't fool the experts, and you can't fool me." Kayla let out a harsh, dismissive laugh. "A few scribbles prove nothing. You have no proof." "Oh, but I do," I said slowly, looking her directly in the eye. "Do you see this faint ink smudge on your little forgery?" I pointed to a blurry, inked fingerprint right next to the fake signature. The smug look on Kayla's face froze. "My lawyer had it sent to the forensics lab. They told me that during a live stream where you were bragging about your new life, you got some magazine ink on your fingers. That fingerprint, combined with your greed, gave you away. They ran it through the APHIS system." I paused for a second to let my words sink in. "It's a 12-point match, Kayla." The color drained from Kayla's face. She went white as a sheet. Her confidence completely crumbled. She stared at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of panic and pure hatred. "You," she hissed. "What have you done?" "I'm just taking back what's mine," I said, my voice even. That's when her mask didn't just fall. It shattered. Kayla stopped screaming. She became something scarier. Her voice dropped low, sharp as a razor's edge. "You are going to regret this, you old hag. You think you've won? I'll sue you. I'll tell the world you're senile, that you're mentally incompetent. I will make sure you don't see a single cent of that money. You will die poor and alone." Tyler, who had been silent the entire time, finally broke. He slumped into the only chair in the room, his head in his hands. "Stop it, Kayla! That's enough!" he moaned. But Kayla didn't stop. She pointed a finger in my face. "You've ruined everything! This is all your fault! You selfish old witch!" I just stood there and looked at her. I no longer felt fear or pain. I just felt a profound pity. Pity for a person so consumed by greed that she could no longer tell right from wrong. "You both need to leave," I said. My voice wasn't a command, it was simply a conclusion. "Everything else, we'll settle in court." Kayla shot me a look that could burn skin, then spun around and stormed out, her shoulder slamming into the doorframe on her way. Tyler lifted his head and looked at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, belated remorse. "Mom, he stammered, the words failing him, as if he were searching for some sliver of hope, some kind of forgiveness. I looked deep into my son's eyes. I didn't see anger or hatred there. I only saw the brokenness of a weak man who had let greed lead him astray. But my pity couldn't change the facts. "Go, Tyler," I said softly, but there was no warmth left in my voice. "Go be with your wife. You've already made your choice." I paused for a second, letting my words sink in. Then I said the sentence I knew would slam every door shut. "Everything else will settle in court." The word court hung in the small room, sounding dry and foreign. It was like the final rap of a judge's gavel, ending any illusion of a quiet reconciliation. Both Kayla, who had almost made it out the door, and Tyler froze. They turned to look at me, almost in unison. The panic and anger on Kayla's face were replaced by utter disbelief, as if I had just spoken in a foreign language. "Court?" Kayla repeated, her voice laced with skepticism, before letting out a dry, harsh laugh. "Are you kidding me? You? Suing us? Suing your own son? You think you have the guts to do that? You, an old woman with nothing to your name, you think you can take us on?" Her arrogance was back, fueled by a deep-seated belief that I would never do anything to harm my family, especially not my only son. Tyler looked at me too, his expression shifting from desperation to pleading. "Mom, don't do this. Please, don't take this to court. Everyone will laugh at our family. You don't want that, do you?" I stood up straighter, feeling a strength I never knew I had. 7 years of swallowing my pain had forged a will of steel within me. "Family?" I asked, my voice like ice. "A family isn't a place where you throw your own mother out on the street like trash. A family isn't a place where you forge signatures to steal from each other, the thing you two destroyed. It wasn't a family anymore, Tyler." I looked Kayla dead in the eye. "You were right about one thing. I have nothing left, and because I have nothing left to lose, I will fight to the very end to get the truth back. And the court is the only place where that can happen." The disbelief on Kayla's face now curdled into pure rage. She realized I wasn't bluffing. "You're insane! You're actually insane!" she shrieked, lunging toward me as if she wanted to tear me apart. "You'll pay for this, I swear it." Tyler scrambled to hold his wife back. "Kayla, stop it." I didn't take a single step back. I stood as firm as a rock. "No, Kayla, this is the price you have to pay," I said, my voice rising, cutting through her screams. "The price for 7 years of using me, the price for betrayal, the price for your bottomless greed." I pointed to the door. The first time in my life I had ever given them an order. "Now get out of here, both of you! Get out of my room now!" They just stood there, stunned into silence by my resolve. "Didn't you hear me?" I snarled, feeling a righteous anger surging through my veins. "If you are not gone in 10 seconds, I'm calling the police. And I will tell them you broke in and threatened me. Do you want to add that to your list of crimes?" The threat of the police finally worked. Tyler, his face ashen, pulled hard on Kayla's arm. "Let's go, Kayla. We're leaving." Kayla struggled for a moment but finally relented. She shot me one last look, a look that promised revenge before Tyler dragged her out of the room. The sound of their angry footsteps faded down the hall. The door slammed shut, but its echo seemed to linger in the small room. I stood there, panting, my body shaking not from fear, but from adrenaline. When the door to my room closed, returning me to silence, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt a bottomless sadness. I had won the confrontation, but I had lost my son, perhaps forever. I sat down on the bed and looked at the 2 papers on the desk, the real signature and the fake one, the truth and the lie. They lay side by side, a stark reminder of the price of greed and the cost of justice. On the day of the trial, the sky over Macon was gray and somber, as if nature itself was holding its breath. I hadn't slept the night before, not from anxiety, but from a strange sense of anticipation. It wasn't the anticipation of someone facing a battle, but of someone about to close a painful chapter of her life. That morning, I didn't choose a formal dress. I wore the blue knit sweater Walter loved most and a simple beige skirt. I wanted to appear in court as myself, Dorothy Harlan, a mother and a grandmother, not a plaintiff seeking revenge. The Superior Court of Bibb County was an old, imposing building with tall columns and marble steps worn smooth by time. As Mr. Jones and I entered the courtroom, I was struck by the solemn atmosphere. The oak pews were arranged in neat rows. On the wall hung the American flag and the Georgia state flag. Everything exuded a sense of power and justice. I sat in the plaintiff's row. Across the room, on the opposite side, were Kayla and Tyler. They looked pathetic. Kayla, who was always so put together, wore a simple black business suit, her unadorned face showing clear signs of exhaustion and worry. Her usual arrogance was gone. She sat silently, her hands clenched together, her eyes fixed on the table. Tyler sat beside her, looking even worse. He was gaunt, with dark circles under his eyes, and he kept running a nervous hand over his face. He didn't dare look in my direction. The judge assigned to our case was a Hispanic woman named Gloria Ramirez. She had salt and pepper hair pulled into a neat bun and a stern face, but her eyes were incredibly bright and intelligent. When she entered and struck her gavel, the entire courtroom fell silent. The trial began. Mr. Jones presented the case with clarity and logic. He didn't use flowery language or dramatic gestures. He simply presented the facts and let the evidence speak for itself. And the evidence spoke, loud and clear. First came the video from Marlene's security camera. It was projected onto a large screen for the whole court to see. The image of Kayla, her face a mask of fury, throwing my boxes onto the lawn was crystal clear. And then the courtroom fell silent as they heard the recorded audio, sharp and cruel. "Go die in some nursing home, you useless thing." I saw a few people on the jury shake their heads. Tyler buried his face in his hands, his shoulders trembling. Next, a forensic expert from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, was called to the stand. He presented his analysis in scientific detail, projecting magnified images of the two signatures onto the screen. "Your Honor," he said, pointing to my signature on the receipt. This signature was created with a fountain pen, using a water-based liquid ink. We can clearly see the variation in ink density as the hand pressure changes. There is a natural, slight tremor in the lettering, consistent with an elderly individual. The ink, upon spectroscopic analysis, was identified as Parker Quink Blue, an ink that has been in production for decades. Then, he switched to the forged signature on the power of attorney. This, however, is an entirely different case. This signature was created with a ballpoint pen using an oil-based paste ink. The pressure is nearly uniform from beginning to end, indicating a stiff, deliberate attempt at copying rather than a natural signature. The loops in the letters are awkwardly closed. These are classic signs of a forgery. The final and most damning piece of evidence was presented. Another expert from the GBI's fingerprint lab took the stand. He testified about the faint fingerprint found on the forged document. "After chemical processing, we were able to lift a clear print," he explained. "We ran this print through the Automated Fingerprint Identification System, or AFIS, against the state database. The system returned a single, unique match. The entire courtroom seemed to hold its breath. This fingerprint," he said, his voice ringing with authority, "is a 12-point characteristic match to the fingerprints of one Mrs. Is, Kayla Harlan, on file from her driver's license renewal last year. In forensic science, a match of 8 to 12 points is considered absolute proof." A murmur went through the courtroom. Kayla squeezed her eyes shut, as if she couldn't bear to face the truth. Her lawyer just sat there, unable to offer any rebuttal. The case was sealed. After a short deliberation, the jury returned. The foreman, a middle-aged man, stood and read the verdict clearly. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Miss Kayla Harlan, guilty on the counts of forgery in the first degree and theft by taking." Kayla burst into tears, not tears of remorse, but the angry sobs of a loser. Judge Ramirez banged her gavel, calling for order. She looked at Kayla, not with contempt, but with a stern and somewhat sad expression. "Miss Kayla Harlan," Judge Ramirez began, her voice echoing through the courtroom, "greed is one of humanity's oldest sins. It can turn good people into bad and family into enemies. You had a mother-in-law who sacrificed for your family for 7 years. Instead of gratitude, you took that sacrifice for granted. And when the opportunity arose, You did not hesitate to cast her aside like old furniture, while attempting to illegally seize the fortune that God had bestowed upon her. Your actions are not just a crime against the law, they are a crime against decency." She paused, letting her words sink in. "This court hereby declares that the full $2 million lottery prize, after taxes, is the sole and legal property of Mrs. Dorothy Harlan." An immense wave of relief washed over me. Tears welled in my eyes, but they were tears of liberation. Judge Ramirez continued with Kayla's sentence. "For the crimes committed, this court sentences the defendant, Kayla Harlan, to 10 years in prison. However, given the defendant's lack of a prior criminal record and her status as the mother of 2 minor children, the court suspends the sentence on the condition that she serves 2 years of strict probation, which will include 12 months of home confinement with electronic monitoring. Furthermore, the defendant is fined $50,000 and must complete 500 hours of community service." And then, she delivered a final, ironically just ruling. The location for the defendant's community service will be the Sunrise Manor Nursing Home. Perhaps there, you will learn to respect and care for the elderly, the very people you so cruelly called useless. Kayla completely fell apart. Finally, Judge Ramirez turned to Tyler. "As for you, Mr. Tyler Harlan, while you are not the defendant in this criminal case, you are a defendant in the court of conscience. Your silence and complicity are also a crime. This court will rule on custody in a separate family court hearing. However, based on the evidence presented today, this court grants you temporary primary custody of your children, Lily and Noah, under the strict supervision of Mrs. Dorothy Harlan. She has proven herself to be the only one in this family who has consistently put the children's best interests first." She brought her gavel down one last time. "This court is adjourned." People began to file out of the courtroom. I just sat there for a moment, trying to breathe and take it all in. Justice had been done. Mr. Jones patted my shoulder gently. "We did it, Mrs. Dot." I smiled at him, a real smile for the first time in a long time. "No, Mr. Jones, the truth did." As I stood up to leave, Tyler approached me. He couldn't look me in the eye. "Mom," he mumbled, I'm so sorry." I looked at my son. I didn't feel anger anymore. I just saw a weak, lost man. "An apology can't heal all wounds, Tyler," I said softly. "Don't apologize to me. Live a life that will make your children proud of you. That's what matters now." I turned and walked away, leaving him to stand alone with his regret. I stepped out of the courthouse and took a deep breath. The rain had stopped. The gray clouds were breaking apart, making way for the first weak rays of sunlight, just like my life. The storm was over, and a new chapter was waiting. Winning the lawsuit didn't bring the ecstatic joy I might have imagined. There were no celebratory parties, no extravagant shopping sprees. When the enormous sum of money, after federal and state taxes were deducted, was officially transferred into the account Mr. Jones had helped me set up, my first feeling wasn't happiness, but an overwhelming sense of awe and heavy responsibility. I looked at the long string of numbers on the computer screen and could only see Walter's face. He was a simple man who believed in the value of hard work. What would he have said about this money that had fallen from the sky? I knew he wouldn't want me to live a frivolous life. He would want me to use it wisely, to secure our family's future, and to leave behind a meaningful legacy. And that's exactly what I decided to do. The first thing I did wasn't to look for a new house or a fancy car. I spent the week after the trial meeting with Mr. Jones and a financial advisor he recommended. I didn't want this money to become a curse, as it almost had for Kayla and Tyler. I wanted to turn it into a blessing. "Mr. Jones," I said during a meeting in his office, "I want to set up a trust fund." He nodded, unsurprised. "That's a very wise decision, Mrs. Dot. For whom and with what terms?" "I want to establish the Walter and Dot Harlan Education Trust." I said, the name already formed in my mind. "I want to set aside $5 million for my 2 grandchildren, Lily and Noah." The financial advisor, a young man named David, took careful notes. $5 million. "Are there any specific stipulations you'd like to put in place for its use?" "Yes," I said firmly. I want very strict rules. The money is to be invested and managed by the bank. Lily and Noah cannot touch a single penny until they are 21 years old. Even then, they can only withdraw funds for specific purposes: college, university, or trade school tuition, living expenses while they are studying, or to start a small business with a well-defined plan. The main condition for accessing the fund is that they must have a high school diploma and be enrolled in a post-secondary education or training program. I don't want them to think they can coast through life without effort. Money can be a wonderful tool, but it can also be poison if it's not used correctly. Mr. Jones smiled, a look of deep respect in his eyes. This is one of the most thoughtful and forward-thinking trust provisions I've ever seen, ma'am. But I wasn't finished. And there's one more thing, I continued. I want to use another $2 million to start a charitable foundation. David looked up, curious. A foundation? For what purpose, ma'am? I took a deep breath, the memories of 7 years in the attic and Kayla's venomous words flooding back. I want to call it the Hands for Home Foundation. Its purpose will be to provide legal aid, counseling, and emergency financial assistance to elderly women who are being financially or emotionally abused by their own children or relatives. There are so many mothers and grandmothers out there like me, suffering in silence, afraid to speak up for fear of breaking up their family or because they have nowhere else to go. I want them to know they are not alone. I want them to have a place to turn, a hand to hold. When I finished speaking, the office was quiet. Mr. Jones looked at me, his eyes shining with genuine emotion. Mrs. Harlan, he said, his voice a little hoarse, you are a remarkable woman. After all the legal work for the 2 trusts was done, I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted. I had secured my grandchildren's future and had turned my own pain into something good that could help others. Now, it was time to think about myself. I had no desire to return to the red brick house in Macon. It held too many painful memories. I needed a fresh start, a peaceful place to heal my soul. I remembered the summer vacations when Tyler was little, when Walter would drive us all to Seabrook Island, a beautiful little barrier island in South Carolina. I remembered the sound of the ocean, the salty air, and the incredible sense of peace I felt walking on the white sandy beaches. I contacted a real estate agent and described my dream home. A small cottage, not too big, but it had to have a wide porch where I could sit and watch the sea, and a little garden where I could plant flowers. A week later, they found it. It was a charming, whitewashed cottage on a quiet street, just a short walk from the beach. It had a wide porch framed with pink bougainvillea and a small backyard just waiting to be tended. When I stepped inside, sunlight flooded the rooms through large windows. I knew instantly, this was the place for me. I bought the house without haggling. The next few days were busy but joyful. I picked out every piece of furniture myself. Not expensive, flashy things, but pieces that felt cozy and comfortable. A cream-colored linen armchair to put by the window, a simple pine dining table, a bed with sea blue linens. The first thing I planted in my garden were purple coneflowers. They were Walter's favorite. He said they looked delicate but had an incredible strength, able to withstand the harsh summer sun and the cold of winter, just like our love, he'd say. As I packed the soil around the small plants, I felt like I was cultivating my own life again, planting seeds of hope and peace. On the largest wall in my living room, I didn't hang an expensive painting. I rehung the wedding photograph of me and Walter, the one I had picked up from the wreckage that day. I had taken it to a restoration shop, and they had done a wonderful job. The scratch was gone. The photo looked brand new. I put it in a simple oak frame. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I see is his radiant smile. It's just as warm as it ever was, and it's a daily reminder that no matter what storms life brings, true love endures. I had found my home, but more importantly, after a long and painful journey, I had found myself again. I was no longer the shadow in the attic. I was Dorothy Harlan, a survivor, a grandmother, and the master of my own life. My new life on Seabrook Island passed peacefully and slowly, like the rhythm of the waves on the sand. I spent my time reading on the porch, walking along the beach every morning, and tending to my garden of purple coneflowers, which were beginning to bloom. I made friends with my neighbors, other people who had come here for the quiet tranquility of the sea. For the first time in many years, I felt like I could breathe, like I was living for myself. About a month after I moved in, Tyler called me. His voice on the phone was hesitant and full of guilt. "Mom, it's me." "I know," I replied gently, without a trace of accusation. He was quiet for a long moment. I could hear his heavy breathing. Could I bring the kids to visit you this weekend? They miss you so much." This was the call I had both hoped for and dreaded. A part of me was still wounded by his betrayal, but another part, the mother in me, couldn't say no. Lily and Noah were innocent in all of this. They deserved their grandmother's love. "Of course, Tyler," I said. "I miss them too." Before they arrived, I did something. I called Mr. Mell at the Macon Wheels bike shop. I asked him if, by any chance, the lavender bicycle was still there. As luck would have it, it was, forgotten in a corner of his stockroom. I asked him to pack it carefully and ship it to my new address on Seabrook Island. I paid him not just for the bike and the shipping, but a generous amount extra to thank him for his kindness. The bike arrived on Friday, the day before Tyler and the kids were due. When I opened the large box, the purple bicycle emerged, just as beautiful and shimmering as I remembered. I wheeled it into the garage and covered it with a cloth, my heart filled with a sweet anticipation. On Saturday, an old, beat-up pickup truck, not the flashy Bentley, pulled up in front of my house. Tyler got out, looking thinner and much older. He wasn't wearing designer clothes anymore, just simple jeans and a t-shirt. He opened the back door, and Lily and Noah tumbled out. The moment they saw me standing on the porch, they let out a cheer and ran to throw their arms around me. "Grandma!" Lily squealed, her voice clear as a bell. "I missed you so much." I knelt, hugging both of my grandchildren tightly, breathing in the sun-kissed scent of their hair. All the sadness, all the wounds inside me seemed to disappear in that moment. Tyler stood back, watching us, not daring to come closer. His face was a complicated mix of joy, shame, and sorrow. After we'd said our hellos and brought their bags inside, I said to Lily, "I have a surprise for you. It's in the garage." Her eyes lit up with curiosity. She dashed into the garage, with Noah and me following behind. When I pulled the cloth off, Lily gasped, her hands flying to her mouth to stifle a scream of pure joy. The purple bicycle, with its white wicker basket, stood there, as beautiful as a dream. "Grandma!" She turned to me, her eyes wide with disbelief. Is it real?" I knelt beside her, stroking her soft hair. "It's real, darling," I whispered, my voice choking with emotion. "This bicycle has been waiting a very long time for you. From now on, no one will ever stop you from dreaming." Lily didn't say anything else. She just wrapped her arms around my neck in a tight, long hug. I could feel her hot tears soaking my shoulder. They were tears of pure, unadulterated happiness. All afternoon, Lily rode her new bike around the small yard. The tinkling of its bell mixed with her peals of laughter, creating a symphony of life and joy. Noah sat with me on the porch swing, and we watched her together. Tyler didn't say much. He just watched quietly. He fixed a leaky faucet for me in the garden and pulled weeds from around my coneflowers. It was his way of trying to atone, not with words, but with actions. At dinner, something unexpected happened. Tyler came into the kitchen where I was getting ready to make fried chicken. "Let me do it, Mom," he said, his voice hesitant. I want to learn how to make Dad's fried chicken again. Can you teach me?" I was stunned for a moment, then I nodded. Walter's fried chicken was a family recipe, a taste of memory. For Tyler to want to learn it again meant something much deeper than just cooking a meal. He wanted to reconnect with his past, with the values he had thrown away. And so, we cooked together in my small kitchen. I showed him how to mix the flour, how to season the chicken, how to keep the oil at just the right temperature. He was clumsy. Flour went everywhere. He burned one piece to a crisp. The smell of scorched onions filled the house. But in the middle of that mess, something was healing. We started talking, not about money or the court case, but about the old days, about happy memories from when he was a boy. That evening, the fried chicken was a little burnt and a little too salty. But as we sat around my pine dining table, under the warm yellow light, listening to the distant sound of the ocean waves and Lily's excited chatter about where she would ride her bike tomorrow, I felt a complete and perfect warmth. Tyler looked at me, and for the first time, he smiled a real smile, not a forced or guilty one. "My chicken isn't as good as Dad's," he said. "But it was made with heart," I replied, "and that's the most important ingredient." Laughter filled my little house again. Not the manic laughter of greed, but the gentle laughter of forgiveness, of new beginnings. I knew the road to healing was still long. The scars would never completely disappear. But in that moment, I realized that a family, like an old house, can be rebuilt after a storm, as long as its foundation is laid in love and sincerity. The purple bicycle wasn't just a gift for Lily, it was a symbol of hope, returned to all of us. The sunset on Seabrook Island is a magical sight. The sun, like a giant fiery orange, slowly sinks below the ocean's horizon, painting the sky and sea in brilliant shades of gold, pink, and deep purple. I've made it a habit to sit on my porch swing every evening, just to quietly watch that brief but glorious meeting of day and night. On that Sunday evening, after Tyler and the children had driven back to Macon, the house returned to its usual quiet. But this time, the quiet didn't feel lonely. It was warm and peaceful, still echoing with the sound of the children's laughter and the lovingly burnt smell of fried chicken. The lavender bicycle stood proudly by the front door, a promise of future visits. I sat in my familiar swing, a cup of hot chamomile tea in my hands. The sea breeze blew gently, carrying its salty scent and rustling the purple coneflowers in my garden. They were in full bloom, a vibrant purple against the setting sun. Walter would have loved this. Resting on my lap was my old leather-bound Bible. I had brought it home from the safe deposit box after everything was over. It was no longer a piece of legal evidence. It had returned to its true purpose, a companion, a source of comfort. My old hands gently stroked the worn cover. I didn't need to open it to know exactly where I had tucked the ticket, Psalm 23. I turned to the page. The lottery receipt was still there, neat and flat, and in the bottom corner, the signature, Dorothy Harlan, in dark blue Parker ink, was still clear, still resolute. It wasn't just a name, it was a declaration. It was the proof of a moment when I decided to fight for justice, for myself. I stared at that signature, and I found myself whispering, as if I were talking to Walter, who I knew was always somewhere nearby. "You were right, Walter. You used to tell me that people can forget words, they can deny actions, but an honest signature never lies. It carries the weight of honor and truth. A person's signature is like their soul." The sea breeze picked up a little, gently flipping the yellowed pages of the Bible. I no longer felt bitter when I thought about what had happened. The pain had been replaced by a deep understanding. I had lost 7 years of my life, and I had lost faith in my only son. But in return, I had found something more precious. I found an inner strength I never knew I possessed. I learned that sacrifice is only meaningful when it is cherished, and that kindness is not the same as weakness. I had been true to my signature, and more importantly, I had been true to myself, to the strong woman who had been hiding inside me all those years. I looked out at the sea. The sunset was almost over, leaving one last streak of light on the water. I felt an urge, a desire to share my story, not to boast or seek pity, but to light a spark of hope for others. I looked straight ahead, as if I were looking into your eyes, the eyes of those listening to this story. If you're listening to this story, wherever you are, from the bustling cities to the quiet small towns, I want you to know that you are not alone. Maybe you've felt invisible too. Maybe you've sacrificed in silence. Maybe someone has called you a burden. Leave a comment below. Let me know what city you're from. Every one of your stories, every one of your shares, is a new page in the great Bible of this life. We may be strangers, but we are connected by our shared experiences, by the power of our resilience. My story isn't about $92 million. The money was just a tool. This is a story about finding my voice at 72 years old. It's the story of a signature that spoke the truth when a human being stayed silent. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Not for me, but so this story of dignity can spread. So it can reach every mother, every grandmother, every woman who has ever been dismissed, ever been forgotten. So they know that even when you think all you have left is an old Bible and a fountain pen, you have all the strength you need to rewrite the final chapter of your own life. I finished my thought. The sea breeze continued to blow. The waves still lapped against the shore. In the distance, I could hear the faint sound of a child's laughter. I closed the Bible and held it to my chest. A feeling of complete and perfect peace washed over me.